Tonight we're locking our windows and our doors. This is the Two-Sentence Horror Story After Show.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Oh my goodness, this lighting is incredible. It's my first time ever seeing the studio like this, and for a good reason. There is so much that's happening on tonight's show. Welcome to the Two-Sentence Horror Stories After Show. This is for episode 105. I can't believe we're at 5 already. The episode is titled Tutorial. My name is Maria Brabham. I will be your host for tonight, and I am amped because we have none other than the CS McMullen here today in the studio. She's a writer of the episode. She's going to be on the phone chatting with us. I am so excited, but first, the rundown of the episode. We're going to talk cinematography. We're going to talk the styling of the episode. We're going to talk about plot, characters. I have a special segment for you guys. I have news and gossip, and then we're just going to head out until next week. So, of course, we're just going to start the show. Usually we do the interview at the end, but we thought it'd be really cool to bring CS on the show. She's going to be talking to us throughout the entire thing. Welcome, Catherine. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course, so are we. We're so happy to have you here. I mean, this episode was nuts. Right before we went on air, I was telling Catherine that this was especially terrifying for me because I grew up doing YouTube. I started in 2007 when I was just 12 years old. And of course, the episode has so many twists, more than I think we've seen in this entire show so far.
Yeah.
I mean, and in the first 5 minutes. So at first, I was immediately drawn in because it's so close to my experience, but then it went crazy, and it's real. It's can't be all at once. It's all these amazing things. So first off, just tell us what was your inspiration behind this episode?
Yeah, so I watched I kind of went through a really strange phase a few years ago where I was just obsessively watching makeup tutorials, and it wasn't necessarily because I was always going to do that makeup tutorial. Sometimes I would do a smoky eye or do whatever, but it was kind of really calming. There's a real rhythm to you, you know what they're like you kind of have a fresh face and you wipe it off and then you build and build. And there's just this way that the people talk and this patter, and I sometimes literally just watch them to go to sleep, not to learn how to do my foundation correctly, just kind of calming. And I'd always thought there was a really cool contained idea there. And then when we had the writers' room for the show, I kind of pitched, it started out quite differently. The ideas almost always morphed and changed, but this one was something where I went, I really want to do a makeup tutorial, and I want to make it that it's not what you expect, and that what you think you're seeing at the start is not what you see by the end.
Wow. That's so creative. And that's the cool thing about horror is we take these everyday experiences, and especially something, so close to home for you, something that you went through and that you were watching, and then we make it into these scary experiences. But I would never, ever think to do a makeup tutorial, which is so cool to me. And the funny thing is, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, that movie just came out, and I loved
I loved
that.
it. I just saw that.
Oh my gosh, I have to see it still. I'm so excited. But I had that book. I first read it in the library in elementary school for the first time, and then I bought it, and that's what made me start loving the horror genre. But I remember there was a story in there, and it was kind of similar to this in the way that, there was a girl, and she's at home, but I think she's FaceTiming, or FaceTiming wasn't around at that time, but she was Skyping her boyfriend, and he came out the closet, and it's so funny because horror, you just take all these different stories, and they're similar, but this, I've never seen anything like this. And what a spin, which really brings us straight into the first thing I want to talk about, is the cinematography and the style, because it's so clear. It's like a web series. I wasn't sure at first if it was a live feed or not, or if it was her, because with YouTube sometimes now they have live, but usually you sit in your room, you set up your camera, and you record it.
Yeah, you're kind of editing. Yeah.
Yes. So what was your vision? Was it supposed to be live, or was she more recording and then posting it?
Well, I think what we ran into, and this was even at the writing stage, it's so funny because you're kind of, even well before, any of the directors or cinematographers and things are on, you kind of have to solve things at a script level. And one of the things with it being, it's kind of meant to be live, it's meant to be happening. And part of that is because if you have it as something that was recorded, and you see that they've edited it later, it's really hard to be scared for characters, because you kind of know that someone has gone back and edited it. So all of the danger that you feel, you're like, oh, but I know they're going to be okay because she must be posting this video. If that makes sense. But it's something that we really kind of thought about. And you know, it's always really interesting doing digital stories because, you know, you look at something that was like cutting edge digital 5 years ago and it'll look really dated. So you have to, and you kind of can't get around that, but you kind of like, you know, Instagram Live wasn't around that. Like, it's pretty recent.
Yeah,
so
very recent.
You know, it's a really interesting challenge as a writer to kind of stay up with this stuff.
Oh my gosh, I bet. But I just thought the whole thing, just straight off the bat, so we can kind of walk through it together, but you know, it was the feel of an actual YouTube video that you're watching, and I love the detail. Like, it had the bar, like the duration bar at the bottom, or if you're watching a real YouTube video. I thought that was so cool, and it had even the push-ins, you know, like the you know, the special effects and the titling. It was so cool. And off the bat, I love that it started with, you know, tutorial by Karina was her name. And she looked demonic. And I realized that. I noticed. I was like, she has kind of a scary face, but I don't know if that was intentional. And so I picked it up kind of a little bit off the bat. And then the whole time, I don't know about you. I mean, well, you wrote it, but I was just like, oh my goodness. The first 5 minutes it was such anticipation because I did not think that they'd ring the doorbell. I thought they were going to come out of the background. And I thought that was so, you know, it was interesting that he came to the front door and then he rang it and you heard the heavy breathing. And it made me think, I don't know if you came across this in your writing, what you decided to do, but I was thinking when he was sitting there at the door and he was heavy breathing, I was like, he would have stayed at the door if she came sooner? Did she take too long? What was your thoughts in the movement in that first part of the episode? Did you originally have it a certain way in your head where you're like, I want them to be in the background, I want the guy to be in the background and come out? Or did you always have him outside the house?
It's interesting. It originally, like when it was kind of at the very, very start of talking about it, it was meant to be all one shot, like all one static camera.
Yeah.
Like literally just all one webcam, as if it was all from one laptop the whole time. And the thing with that is that it's interesting, but it's hard to do for that long, basically. Yeah. And so originally it was that, and you kind of then had him climbing in through the window, and that was really where it started. But so yeah, the choreography of it kind of switched around quite a lot in terms of just, you know, like it's always really a balance between making people like kind of feel scared as someone's moving through and feel worried for them, but also not just constantly like making it a red herring in terms of horror, because like, you know, obviously something has to happen eventually, otherwise you're just constantly on edge.
You're just always scared for your life. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess a question I have now, I just realized this, but so in the writer's room, I didn't realize, so it's a writer's room and then you're pitching stories and then you get to write the episode yourself. Is that what happens in this writer's room specifically?
Kind of. I mean, it's a lot more, it very much varies show to show. Like obviously we're an anthology show, so often the things that we pitched would be like, there was kind of a natural flow to who got what stories. I mean, honestly, the writer's room was so fantastic. Every writer in there is just an amazing creative human. Like it was such a positive experience. And great. So it was kind of like, it wasn't that you didn't always pitch something and then you wrote it. And a lot of ideas, like there were ideas that were more combos of a few pitches, or that, you know, but then there were things like this where I really I pitched this idea, I loved it, and then because of that, like it's often pretty obvious who the person to write it is, in terms of like the other two guys in the room were like, yeah, we haven't watched a lot of makeup tutorials. You know, so naturally, like, because I was on the pitch, but there was stuff that I pitched that I didn't write that ep, and then vice versa as well. You know, and the nice thing about it is that, you know, it was quite egoless. It wasn't like, oh, I have to write this one. It's like, well, okay, well, who is the best writer for this? Yeah. And often that's the person that's the closest connection to the story. So no, I mean, I was very thrilled when I was the one that was writing this one, because I was like, oh, I can write like that YouTube, like, hey guys, how you going? Like I just got it out.
And she was amazing too. The delivery of all the lines. And
Yeah.
it truly seemed like a YouTube video, because that's kind of how YouTubers act. They're like, hey guys, and they talk slow, and they're like, what's up? And they document everything as they go. So it felt, I can see that now in your writing, and it clearly shined through just because you've watched so many of these, and it was, they brought it. So that's great. But speaking of the writer's room, did you guys bring the 2 sentences to the room and then attach the story to it, as far as like you wanted a makeup tutorial? Did you say, this is the 2-sentence horror story that I want to write, and this is the plot? Or what did the 2-sentence horror stories have to do with your writing process? At one point did those 2 sentences come in to the picture?
It varied from story to story, but it was generally that we got an episode, an idea, and a pitch, and then did the sentences around it. There were occasional exceptions to that, I think. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. But it's because the thing is, like, the format is more about, like, that there will be something that flips it. Like, that's why that second sentence is interesting. It's like, well, here's the setup, and you're like, well, how, that seems pretty clear cut. And then the second sentence is about that flip. Like, Vera, our showrunner, always kind of talks about that. And so it's kind of, as long as you know that the story has to have something that's unexpected, and that there is something that you go, oh, well, that's not what I thought it would be, then that's really the feeling of the 2 sentences that's important. And then the actual specificness of the 2 sentences you can kind of tweak as you go. Because it's all about, you think you're watching, like I wrote the Gentleman, the first step, and you think you're watching one thing, you think you're watching a serial killer story, and you are, but you're watching something else as well. So it's just about making it kind of always unexpected.
I'm telling you, that ending threw me, of Gentleman. That was I was like, no, I was not expecting that. And I remember when they took off the mask, I thought it was going to be a real baby. I was like, this is getting dark. I remember that was the first show I did, and I was like, this is getting dark, but I feel like when I first thought, I thought she was going to take it off. So you're just great at plot twists, clearly. They're unexpected. Before we move on, I just have a message really quick for the viewers. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching and listening and making AfterBuzz the ESPN of TV talk. We're able to bring you guys so many different shows, not even just horror. We have comedy, we have drama, we have everything that you guys and that we could ever dream of, only because you guys tune in. So if you have a second, please subscribe, hit that bell notification on YouTube, so you can know every single time there's a new video. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you listen, give us 5 stars and leave us a rating so that we can keep doing this thing, because it's super exciting. We keep bringing people like CS on, which is super cool. So moving on, I really want to talk about the storyline, the plots, and the characters, get more into that. We talked about style before, but then we started, going into the writing room, which is super exciting. But now, getting into this, I love that it started out more realistic. And like I said, she's sitting there. It looks like a real tutorial that you're watching as the viewer. You're not just watching TV, you're watching almost YouTube. And it starts to spiral. And I know for me, the minute that I was like, oh my goodness, something is wrong, is when the phone light went off. I thought that was super cool in the scene where, I don't remember if that was now, I'm thinking, I don't know if it was before or after the phone call when he was talking to his friend, or if he was texting him, but I was like, what's going on? That was when it really just started, to go down for me.
It's not what you thought.
Yes. And so for me, I wasn't expecting that at all. And so when you're writing, what was the pivotal point for you? Like, what was the point that you wanted it hardest? Was it this point in time, or did you have different beats that you really wanted to spread evenly? What was like your big focal point when you were writing?
I think because there's, I'm trying to remember, I think there's about 3 flips in it from what you think it is. So there's the first is like, you think you're watching a tutorial, and like, obviously you know that you haven't clicked on a YouTube link saying this is a tutorial, so you know it'll be something else. Be like, okay, well, what, like you were saying, there's that tension. How will this not be a real makeup tutorial? Like, what will be wrong with this thing I'm watching?
Yeah.
And then the second flip is like, oh no, someone's breaking in, like someone's doing a thing, she's in danger. And then it's really that midpoint flip. You're like, wait, this guy that I thought was dangerous isn't what I thought. What is actually going on? I think that's probably the biggest flip, because it kind of, that's really where, like, everything after that, I don't really think, I mean, maybe there's one flip right at the end, but really that's when the shift happens. And everything after that, you're like, oh, I see. Like, but it's figuring out how it isn't what you thought, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few different ones where I think, whereas a lot of them really, like, the flip is just at the end, whereas this is kind of like a few at the start.
Wow. That's fantastic. I love that. So speaking of the main character, I mean, crazy. We have a female slasher, and you don't get that a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know.
No, you don't get enough. We need more female serial killers.
Exactly, which I love about this. So how important was that to you to write this character? And
incredible.
How was that experience?
It was the first moment we pitched. We pitched the episode. We went, we want this to be a woman of color. Like, it was very, very clear that was kind of that. It's not why it's interesting to us, but it was such an important part of the character. And you know, I'm constantly fascinated by kind of like the amount of hate that people like the Kardashians and stuff get online, and you know, they're incredibly successful businesswomen. If nothing else, I can completely understand if you don't watch the show, but like they're amazing at what they do. And there's so many influencers and people out there that they're working. It's their job. That's how they make money. And often they're women, and you know, often they're women of color, and it's just a thing where I was like, it made more sense to me to have her as that, and then flip it, because also you don't see that often, so you really don't expect it. Like, you don't expect her to be doing that because you're not used to seeing someone that kind of gets to be the scary person. Yeah,
that's so true. And speaking of I think this whole series so far that we've seen, the 5 episodes, I've said that there's been commentary in horror in general and thrillers and all these type of movies and TV shows. They always kind of bring a certain commentary, I think, to society. And
you always have to have something to say, absolutely.
Yeah, there's always an extra layer. And so my guess, I always like to guess at the end of the episode what I think what the writer is trying to say, and luckily we get to talk to you, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
But I was
I don't know
thinking,
if I did it well.
No, you did so great. But I would say, and it's so funny hearing you say that, which makes me ask this question, is I was thinking the commentary in this episode was people will do anything for views. So they'll kill someone, they'll change themselves, they'll do something unexpected, they'll lure people in. You've seen crazy pranks. Like I know a few years ago, there was a YouTuber who like cemented a microwave to his head just for views, and he almost died. They had to call the police.
I mean, I would watch that.
Oh, did you watch it? Oh my God, I couldn't.
No, I
believe
said I would watch that.
Oh,
yeah.
Right, right. And it's just these are the kind of things that go viral. The ones that you're like, why would anybody watch this? And then people are watching it. Those same people who say that are the ones watching it. So that was what I took away from this. I was like, maybe that's what this commentary is. But what would you say as the writer? The commentary is.
That was totally something that is a huge part of that thing, because it is that, like, because you see it in the escalating, there's that real pressure to do the cooler thing and do the bigger, especially the prank videos and that whole subgenre. I think you see that where people really escalate. Like, there was that case with that family where the kids were like, taken away from them, and it's like, that's gone a bit far. Like, you know, so I think that really informed a lot of what we were thinking, and just, you know, kind of that idea that like there's a sub community of people that are egging each other on. And I don't know if you've ever like wandered into like kind of the wilds of YouTube where you'll click on a link, then you'll click on a link, and then you'll realize you're like in like a really specific, like, you know, carpentry videos, but it's like carpentry people responding to other videos, and you're like, how have I gotten here?
It's a black hole.
Because I do that all the time. And I kind of wanted to do a bit of that where it's like, because makeup world, I mean, there was that whole big kind of drama fallout thing a couple of months ago where it was, you know, all the makeup people doing exposed videos and all of that drama, and it's so specific. Like, it's such a tiny community, but so intense.
Yeah.
And so I think I wanted to talk about that as well, just that idea that like, they're doing really extreme things, but like it's kind of within. Like, she's not doing that in a vacuum. She's doing it as part of a community where she might be reacting to a video that someone else made last week that got a crazy response. So she's trying to respond to that. I don't know. It's just a really interesting cultural thing.
Yeah. The internet is a wild place. I'll say that much. And I think this captured it very well. For sure. But so now that we know that you wrote Gentleman as well, what would you say was the difference in the processes between the two?
Gentleman was I felt a huge connection with Gentleman as well, but it probably, like, I think that was a combination. I can't remember if I honestly couldn't tell you if I pitched that or not. I don't think I did, actually. I think that was kind of like we talked through ideas of that. Gentleman, a lot of what I wanted to say was, which I think a few reviews kind of picked up on, which is great, like kind of expectations we have around mothers and the pressure that mothers get put under. And I've had a few friends that have recently become mothers, and just like the things that they feel like they have to do to be a good mother, because, like, you know, if you don't feed your kid organic, whatever, then suddenly you're the worst mother in the world. And sometimes that's them saying that to themselves, but it's because they're kind of getting that from the outside world. So I think that was where I really connected with Gentleman and went, like, you know, obviously it's about a creepy dude and it's a dating story, and like I'm also dating. So it's like there was a lot of, like, there was some bad Tinder dates put into Gentleman.
I bet.
But really, like, the core of it for me, it was like, well, what is motherhood, and how do you cope when you feel that pressure to be it, and you're kind of told that that's what you should be doing, and it's not happening. And so even though on the surface it looks like kind of a dating thing, it was really more of me trying to kind of explore some of those things.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, got that.
Yeah, I can see that. And now that makes me love that episode even more now that you say that too, because I feel like the creepy guy that she dated, he kind of acts as like the voice of society, and, like, you know, with the first woman that he killed, saying like, you're a bad mom, you're a good mom, like, you're not in the room, you have, you know, you have this guy in your house, and it's like, maybe that's not the smartest thing, but maybe this woman needed a break, or like, is he slut shaming her? It's like, he goes in, but then he tells the second woman, like, you're a good mom, you're a good mom, you're a good mom, you're a good mom. Let me come over, like, I want to meet the baby. So that's a really powerful point. So dynamic. Look at you killing it.
No, I mean, I think, and like there's so many things, like, you know, the stuff around breastfeeding was specifically stuff that, like, you know, I remember reading this horrible comment thread. Not that I'm on the internet too much, but clearly I am. But it was just like all of these men giving their opinions about how it was really important, and I was like, that's not on you. like,
interesting.
Maybe don't interject.
Yeah, like, what do you know about it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I love the commentary. I love talking about horror and all of this. It was such a good episode. I'm so glad you could kind of walk us through it and everything else. But is there anything else that you want the viewers to know about this episode?
No. I mean, I think I was just really excited as well, because it kind of felt really classic. Like, you know, even just some of the camera angles and stuff, like Paranormal Activity, and like, you know, kind of those almost found footagey, like, films. Like, I love that subgenre, and so it's really nice to, like, meld things, and I think that's something the show and Vera, the showrunner, does so well, which is like there's really classic horror things, but then you put kind of like the newer or, you know, more updated spin on them, and yeah, I'm kind of excited to see people watch it.
Oh, that's so exciting. And do you write any of the other episodes coming up for this season?
No, so I wrote those two. I wrote Gentleman and Tutorial.
That's so exciting. Well, congratulations. Clearly, I thought you killed it personally. No pun intended. Thank you. Wild twist, I'm telling you. But now you totally stay with us, because we have two really fun segments coming up, but we're going to do our special segment now, and our special segment is called Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. And basically in this special segment, I just take one of the examples of a horror movie that was inspired by real life events. And so last week we did Nightmare on Elm Street, which was one of my favorite slasher movies, like, of all time. I love it. Crazy. Or I guess not slasher, but it's like paranormal and, you know, the original classics.
Yeah, classic.
I love it. But this week I want to do Amityville Horror, and I think most people kind of know the story, and that was based on a true family, but I just think it's so creepy. It gets me every time. So the original was made in 1979, and basically a young family moves into a house. Oh, I love this music. It gets me every time. It gives me the chills. A young family moves into a house where a murder was committed, and they experience strange and terrifying occurrences, and that's basically the entire movie. But the crazy part is that it was inspired by a real life event. So it's based on a book of the same name. the Amityville Horror, and it follows the paranormal events that terrorized the Lutz family in 1975. And so they moved into this house on 112 Ocean Avenue, and this guy named Ronald DeFeo, I think that's how you say his last name, Jr., he brutally murdered his family 13 months before this Lutz family arrived, which is wild. And I want to know this process too. I don't know if you know anything about this, CS, but what happens in real estate? Like, how do you, don't they have a right to tell you? They should tell you that someone was brutally murdered there. I never understand that in movies and in real life too. But I don't know if is that required? Do you know?
I don't think they have a legal, I'm sure it depends on the country, but I'm pretty sure they legally don't have to tell you. So it might be something where like every house you move into, you're like, I'm just going to check.
Yeah, you're like, let me look up the history of this. That's smart. So everybody out there, you know what you need to do if you're looking for houses or even apartments, which can be a little scary. But basically in the real life story, this family's in their new home, and they claim that they saw green slime on the walls and red-eyed pigs staring into their kitchen and the living room. That's terrifying. And after less than a month, the Lutz family moved out of the small town of Amityville, New York. And there you have it. Wild. The Amityville horror story. So now you guys know it's based on true events, so you better watch out. All right. And now, moving on to our news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
I'm really excited. So last week I read a little bit from Guy Pools, one of the cinematographers on the show, but this week I'm going a different direction with the news and gossip. So I actually found this article, and it's called "Why Do We Crave Horror Movies?" And it's basically just a scientific study about why, we love it. And of course, everyone's always like, personally, I think everybody's attracted to horror movies for different reasons, and clearly I like the commentary that it has on society, and I like that it's a metaphor. And a lot of movies, they hit you over the head with their commentary, but I like that horror is so subdued and it plays on our fears. But for me, a big thing is like, I don't know, some people like roller coasters, some people like, I don't know, like going out crazy in the town. I like the adrenaline rush that movies give me, simply put. I just think it's super exciting. So CS, why do you crave horror movies? Why do you like it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I've always loved horror films, but I'm a genre person in the sense of like I love science fiction, I love fantasy, and I love horror. Like, and horror was probably something that I've come to more in like the last couple of years. And part of the reason why is that I get incredibly scared. Like legitimately, I have had trouble watching my own stuff. I'm very, very scared in theaters, and people are like, "Isn't this your job?" I'm like, "Oh, definitely. I'm very scared right now." So I get really affected by it, but I remember reading a thing a while ago that I found really interesting, which is that horror and the things that horrify you are so different from country to country, but horror films, more so than other genres, can also travel country to country, like Korean horror or Japanese horror. Those monsters are very, very different to what like Western horror films would have, because different things kind of scare you as a society. But some of them, you can still watch it, and I can still be terrified by a Japanese film, and so I find it really interesting. Where I'm like, there's things that scare us that are really specific. Like I'm obviously not from America. I'm Australian, and we have an obsession with kind of landscape as something that's quite scary. Like there's a lot of our horror films really deal with like those wide open spaces and that idea that like you could just wander off and never see anyone again, because it's so big. But at the same time, you can still watch like Wolf Creek and not be Australian and still be scared by it, even though Australian films have a different flavor. So yeah, I don't know. It's such an interesting genre, and the best horror films always have something to say. Even if it's not immediately apparent. Like, It Follows is one of my favorite films of all time, and it has such interesting things that it wants to say, as well as a super cool monster. Like,
yeah. That is eye-opening, honestly, because I didn't know that Australian films focused on open spaces. And as soon as you said that, I visualized it. I'm like, it's a field and you're wandering, and it's like you never see civilization again. And that's so funny because I feel like so many American stories focus on like tight spaces and closed spaces.
Yeah, definitely. We certainly have like, horror films that are contained and all of that, but like there's definitely, I've literally read essays saying like kind of landscape as horror, and it's like, yeah, there's often something in that landscape hunting you, but it's a particular thing. That, you know, if you're making a film in England, they often have kind of horror that's like, not all the time, but it's, you know, like a small village and everyone's in on it and you're the outsider, because that's, you know, it'd be really hard to be scared of a wide open space in England. Like, it's just a different culture. So, yeah, it's really interesting. I love horror because I think it brings us together as well. Like, it you know, comedy films are really hard to sell from country to country because comedy can be really specific, and horror, like, if it's well done, people will watch it and go like, oh, cool, I watched this cool Belgium thing the other day, you know? Like,
yeah, that's very true. So now I'm like, oh, I got so invested in this conversation. But so this this article, that's what we're here for, news and gossip. This article by it's David DeSalvo, and again, it's Why Do We Crave Horror Movies? And it says that one is what I'll call the controlled environment theory, which says that when we watch scary movies, we're intentionally triggering our fight or flight response in an environment where we control the variables. This theory is similar to the thinking behind exposure theory, sometimes used to treat phobias. Does that even work? I need to know, because I don't think so. I'm terrified of snakes, and I've seen them, and it never gets better. The more we experience...
Moths are terrifying. Oh, I hate them so much. Yeah, moths and birds.
Oh, my, and birds. Oh, my gosh. Alfred Hitchcock. Have you seen that movie?
No, I literally haven't, because my entire family is scared of birds. Like, all of us on my mom's family, like, all of my cousins, if a bird appears, we're just like...
Oh my god! Did you learn that, you think, from your family, or is it something where you realized it on your own?
My theory is that it's like one of my grandparents must have been very scared of them, and then all of the siblings, like my mum and her siblings, kind of got that phobia passed down, like, you know, because you learn what to be afraid of from your parents, their reactions when you're little, and then all of the cousins are all like, ugh, birds.
Oh my gosh. Birds? Now I'm totally gonna think about birds differently. Moths are kind of terrifying too. They're just...
Oh yeah, that's disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're gross. I feel like they're kind of, you know, they're only at night. And I feel like they're
the devil's butterflies.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's what I was going to say. They're like beautiful in a way. They remind me of butterflies, but at the same time, now that I think about it, they get into your house and they're almost like ghosts, because they're usually like, I mean, there's like this black speckled ones, but they're usually like white and they're by the light, and then they like fly in and out and you're like, what was that? So I totally understand that. Things with wings, things that fly. Maybe not so scary for me. It's things that slither, but oof.
Maybe I should watch moth films, and that'll cure me of my phobia.
Please get back to me. That would be lovely to know if it actually cures your phobia, and if you watch moth films or films featuring moths, I will watch Snakes on a Plane and maybe some other things.
Oh my god.
And see if we feel better about it. But that's all we have for tonight's show. This was so much fun. CS, can you tell us what you're working on, what you want our viewers, you know, any projects you're working on that you want them to follow, where they can find you on social media? If you do that and you present your projects that way, where can we find you?
So I'm on Twitter as CS McMullen, and I'm on Instagram as Catherine S. McMullen. And then, it's very exciting. I've got a film coming out at the Toronto International Film Festival next week. So that's called The Other Lamb, and hopefully you guys can hopefully see it soon. It's a horror film about a cult in the middle of a forest. So
my open spaces. I gotta see it. Yeah. Congratulations. That's really, really exciting, and I know it's gonna do well, and I can't wait to hear and read all the articles on it. I can't wait. It's gonna be really good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. It's been so lovely having me on. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for doing it.
Oh, thank you, CS. All right, see you later. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, there she goes, CS. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been lovely being here with you tonight, and I hope you liked tonight's episode. I thought it was one of the best so far, and I honestly say that every week because I just think it keeps getting better. So again, I'm your host, Mia Brabham. You can find me on Twitter at Hot Mess Mia, because it's a hot mess over there. I'm giving you all my real thoughts. And on Instagram at Yours Truly Mia, where, you know, I'm usually penning letters and showing you every side of my life. And then I'm also on YouTube, so I usually comment below and I respond to everything you guys say, so you can see me there and subscribe as well. Most importantly, subscribe to AfterBuzz and to this show so you can see more. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.